Supreme Court today blocked the Trump administration's efforts to end the Obama-era Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, which granted protection to undocumented immigrants brought to the country as children. That program protects nearly 650,000 recipients known as Dreamers. Joining us now is Representative Debbie Mucarsel-Powell from Florida. Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. So in regards to protections for Dreamers, I want you to highlight why DACA and this ruling is so important to your constituents in particular.
Well, thank you for having me. And I have to tell you that I am celebrating with the thousands. We have almost 11,000 Dreamers right here in my district, because what the Supreme Court ruled today is something that we already knew, that Dreamers are Americans except on paper, that this is their home. And this is truly a monumental decision. Now, Dreamers in my area here in the district in South Florida, they're teachers, they are nurses who are right now in the front lines combating COVID-19. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. They contribute almost $2 billion to Florida's economy right here in the state of Florida. So this is huge. They have been living in fear for far too long, but they've had the courage to march and to step up and to demand protections. Now, I think that this is a great step. I think that it's a day to celebrate, but at the same time, what we need to do is to enact this ruling into law. I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee, and we passed over a year ago the Dreamers Act, and that will provide Dreamers a path to citizenship, and it's sitting in the Senate. So what we're asking now is for the Senate, after this ruling, to realize that the Trump administration broke the law, that Dreamers have every right to be here in the United States, and that they need to have that path to citizenship. I'm putting pressure on my senators here in the state to do just that.
Congresswoman, on that note, I do want to go back to the motivations from the Trump administration. Part 4 of the opinion written by Chief Justice Roberts shows that Justice Sotomayor was the only person who thinks there was intent to discriminate against Latinos here. Do you think discrimination played a role in the administration's move to try to terminate DACA?
This shouldn't even be a discussion anymore. I mean, I don't think. I know. He has been referring to Mexicans as criminals. He has separated families at the border. Right here in my district, we had a detention facility that held close to 3,000 kids, ages from 10 to 17 years old. They had been separated from their families. They had families here in the United States, but they were being detained for months at end. And I'm really proud to say that because of my activism, we were able to shut that down. But it's true. I mean, the Trump administration ran on an anti-immigration policy. He immediately enacted a ban against Muslims that were traveling into the United States. The courts also sided with us, which is unconstitutional, to declare that executive order was unconstitutional. And now we see once again that the Supreme Court said that his ruling was, his demands were capricious. And we now are also making sure that the USCIS, which is the Customs and Immigration Agency, starts processing those DACA renewals right away.
Yeah, it's clear that the Supreme Court is starting to push back on some of these moves by the Trump administration, including this week SCOTUS ruling that gay and transgender people are protected against employment discrimination. The president has tweeted his displeasure on this. If we can pull up his tweet from today, saying, does it feel like the Supreme Court, or does it look like the Supreme Court doesn't like me? You can see that tweet right there. What do you think these decisions by the Supreme Court, the general sentiment around these decisions, what does this mean for President Trump's potential re-election this year?
Well, what that tweet shows me is that the president doesn't have a clear understanding of the rule of law or how our government in the United States functions. The Supreme Court, the judicial branch, is an independent branch of government. Whether they like him or not is completely irrelevant. I think that public opinion, the court of public opinion, matters. That's why you saw that ruling on Monday, which was also a ruling for all of us to celebrate. We actually passed the Equality Act through the Judiciary Committee as well over a year ago. It's another bill that's sitting on the Senate. So I think that public opinion matters and activism matters. And we've seen now how thousands and thousands of people are demanding change. And this is a moment for all of us in Congress to come together, show the American public that we're actually listening to their demands, that we understand what change means, and take some action.
Joe Biden has called this ruling a victory, but on that note, recent polling has actually shown that there's a lack of enthusiasm for Biden by Latinos. You have endorsed him, but why do you think there is a lack of enthusiasm for Biden among this group?
Well, some of it could just be misinformation. I've known Vice President Biden for quite some time. And when he decided to run for presidency, we had a long conversation on the policies that he had been personally leading when he was vice president, which were investments in Central Americas, in the Triangle, the Northern Triangle, where they are seeing so much violence. And those investments were working. Now, the Trump administration immediately made significant cuts. He understands what is happening in South America. And that's important here in my district because we have almost 50% of the people that live here were born in another country, for either Central or South America. He also knows that Latinos are right now demanding certain changes for healthcare. We are the ones that have been paying the price under COVID. The COVID-19 pandemic has really unveiled the inequities in our healthcare system or in our education system. I've spoken to him about that. So I think, I hope that Latinos all over the country, Hispanics all over the country, pay attention to his agenda. One interesting note, you can go to his website to see all the policies. If you go to the Trump administration's website for his political campaign, there are absolutely no policies helping the Hispanic communities. So I think it could just be a moment for all of us to get better informed, and for us in leadership to also make sure that people understand that he understands our issues, which are lack of access to healthcare, jobs that are not paying fairly. And a lot of us also, a lot of my community, they're essential workers. They've had to continue to work through the pandemic without the proper PPE equipment. And he also has made a commitment to, on the first 100 days, to enact major immigration reform. And he has said it publicly, so I'm excited to support him.
Congresswoman, lastly, it was recently noted in the Miami Herald that protest organizers in Miami have argued that police departments in South Florida are part of a larger systemic racism problem in police forces. What measures quickly do you propose to crack down on racism in law enforcement?
Well, just yesterday, we passed through the committee, through the Judiciary Committee, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which I was one of the main sponsors on that bill. There is systemic racism in all police departments across the United States. There are some good police officers that have the best intentions, but we have to recognize that there is this systemic racism and underlying bias in the way that they police our communities. So we are banning chokeholds in this bill. We are demanding that police officers wear body cameras. We're investing in community programs. Police officers need to be a part of the community. There are some very successful programs out there where they can become partners in making sure that our communities are safe. And it also has a national database where you can actually refer a police officer who has been charged with misconduct to a public database so that they are not able to transfer from one department to the other. It has some other provisions as well, but it's a truly transformational bill that will bring reform to police departments all over the United States.
Congresswoman, thank you again so much for your time today. That's Representative Debbie Mucarsel-Powell from Florida. Thank you again, Congresswoman.